All right, today we are in part 3 of our study of the harmony of the Gospels, the life of Christ, which is entitled Controversy over the King. And we've already looked at A, the rejection of the herald, John the Baptist, and we are ready now to look at section B, the curse of the cities of Galilee, paragraph 61. Initially, we're looking at the condemnation for unbelief found in Matthew 11, 20 to 24. So we have one question from that section, relatively simple. Question number 10, provide the correct number.
Yeah.
Why would cities like Sodom be judged less severely than cities like Capernaum? I think we already talked about this, didn't we?
Well, we need to do the teacher section for the,
Oh, for the previous.
yeah. What was Jesus' explanation of this generation?
Oh, okay. And that's very simple. What do you think? When Jesus said this generation, what did he mean by that? What would be the obvious answer? Let's look at where's the text? Anybody see the verse?
Verse 16.
I see verse 31 of Luke 7. Are you in Matthew? It's
Yeah.
verse
16.
16. Okay, in Matthew it says, but to what shall I compare this generation? It's like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling to their playmates and so on. And then Luke, I think, says much the same thing. Yeah, to what then shall I compare the people of this generation? And what are they like? They're like children sitting in the marketplace. All right, so what generation, what does he mean by this generation? It's not rocket science.
This generation?
What does he mean by that?
His generation.
What?
His generation.
Can you use a different word than generation? Sam, you look like you have an idea.
No.
That's your I don't have an idea look?
Mm.
I'm having a hard time reading it.
Okay.
John, what's he mean by this generation? Nate? No one, what's a generation? Do we not know what that is? What's a generation?
Period of time when people are born.
A period of time when people were born. All right? So he says this generation, what period of time when people were born is he referring to? Is he talking about our period of time?
No.
No.
His period of time.
His period of time. So the period of time when Jesus was living. So the people living at the time of John the Baptist who heard him. That's who he's talking about when he says this generation. All right. That shouldn't have taken as long as it did. All right. So now verse or number 10. Why would cities like Sodom be judged less severely than cities like Capernaum? Did we talk about this before? Is there another question like this?
Yeah, it was the same question.
Did we talk about this question?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's the answer then? Should be easy then. Noel, what's the answer?
Because they had a chance to get the message, but they decided not to get the message.
Who's the they? You talking about Sodom or you talking about Capernaum?
Capernaum.
What do you mean?
They had the chance to receive the gospel, and yet they didn't.
Why? How? How did they have a chance? That Sodom didn't.
Well, for one, Sodom was before the time of Jesus.
Okay. Go on.
And so Capernaum.
I know you think you're being clear. I just want to make sure everybody understands. Go ahead.
Well, Capernaum was where Jesus' base was.
Yeah.
And so they heard the gospel.
Yeah. So Jesus was there. He was performing miracles. He was giving the message. Did Sodom have anybody giving them a message even, or any miracles? No. So cities like Sodom will be judged less severely because Sodom didn't see the miracles of Jesus. They didn't experience Jesus being there. All right, the next section under Curse of the Cities of Galilee is called Explanation of Unbelief. Matthew 11:25-27. At that time, Jesus declared, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and understanding and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. All right, so number 11, what did Jesus pray to his Father when he answered them? And basically, we're looking for a summary of his prayer here. What's he praying? What do you have? You've done these, right? Did I sign these? Oh, no? Okay. I didn't give you any assignment over the weekend? All right, okay. I don't remember. All right, so look at that. What's he saying here? What did Jesus pray to his Father? Well, let me ask you first. First of all, he thanks the Father for what? What would you say? What, Griff?
Hiding these things from the wise.
All right. All right. First of all, he thanks the Father for hiding truth from the wise. Okay, let's get that part down. And then what's the second part?
And revealing them to little children.
And revealing it to children. And if we contrast with the wise, then what would we call children?
Naive.
What?
Naive.
Can't understand.
Naive.
Naive. Okay, that's a good word. Or we could just say unwise, right? Naive would be a good synonym for that. Does he really mean children as in like 7 and 8 year olds? No, he's talking about children in their understanding. All right, so Jesus is thanking God the Father for hiding truth from the wise and revealing it to the unwise, or the simple, or the naive. All right, number 12, think about it. Does this seem fair? Any thoughts? Can we comment on that? That God the Father was hiding truth from the wise and revealing it to the unwise? What do you think about that? Well, let me ask you this. Why does God do that? Or why might he do that? Let me ask you this then. Is it possible for a person to understand the truth without God revealing it to them? I'm talking about the spiritual truth. No. So God chooses to whom he will reveal his truth. So what do you think about him hiding it from the wise and revealing it to the unwise? Right?
Otherwise, those who think they can own it on their own, like the truth of the gospel and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he's revealing it to those who like have full faith in him and realize they can't do it on their own.
Yeah, so those who are wise in their own eyes. I think that's what he's talking about here. People who are not going to be receptive to God's truth, certainly. We find this principle from the Apostle Paul, too, where he says that God didn't choose to reveal salvation to those who are the most noble, the wealthiest, the most highly respected, the most intellectual. He chose to reveal his gospel to those that are rather lowly. Why? It's to demonstrate that it is from him, that it's all of him, that it's not based on your own inherent intelligence or abilities, any of those things. right, well, let's go on to the invitation to belief. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. A familiar verse, I'm sure, for you. Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now, are there any words in those statements that you are unfamiliar with, that you don't know what they mean? I want to make sure we cover that first. If there's any words there that you're not sure what that means? Anybody? So I can assume you all know all the vocabulary there. All right. Now, if you'd done this on your own, you would do some research, but maybe we can combine our knowledge here and answer number 13. What is a yoke, and why does Jesus say we should wear one? Well, first of all, what's a yoke? What's that?
It's like the thing inside of an egg.
That's a different yoke.
Oh.
That's Y-O-L-K. Oh, wait a minute. What's this?
You're right. That's what I.
Yeah. And this is Y-O-K-E. Yeah, sounds the same. All right, so the yoke's on you. All right, anybody else know what a yoke is? Besides, okay, did all of you think it was the middle of an egg?
Yes.
So when Jesus said, "Take my yoke upon you," you thought he was throwing eggs at you? Sean, what's a yoke?
A wooden cross piece that's fastened over the necks of two animals and attached to the plow or a cart that they.
Oh my goodness.
And you got that right out of his head.
I know, right?
The genius.
Can you put that in your own words?
A wooden cross piece that's fastened over the necks of two animals.
All right, a wooden cross piece, the what?
That's fastened over the necks of two animals.
All right.
So they can pull the cart together, not separate.
Right, can you picture that? You know, the wooden cross piece that goes, you think about two oxen that are attached to a yoke, and that enables them to pull a cart, pull a plow. All right, so that's what a yoke is. Why does Jesus say we should wear one? Why does Jesus want us to wear a yoke? Or what does that indicate about our relationship with Jesus? Joel?
That we're his servants.
Yeah, so we've got work to do, right? An ox is there to work, and so we have work to do too. But what's the difference? You know, the first thing he says is, "Come all who labor and are heavy laden." What does that mean? If you're labor and are heavy, what does it mean to be heavy laden? We don't talk that way usually. What's that mean about your working? If you're heavy laden, what does that mean? Come on, you told me you knew all the words here.
You like burden,
You're what?
burden.
You have a heavy burden. Yeah. So he's using an everyday physical activity that they were familiar with to indicate a spiritual reality. Because without Jesus, people often try to work and work to please God or to find their way to God. And is that easy? No. There's a lot of burden there, especially thinking about the people to whom he's talking. Many of them thought that the way to get to God was by doing what?
Works.
Works. What kind of works?
Good works.
Well, good works, but where did they get them? Where did they get the idea what they should do?
Yes.
The Pharisees, and the Pharisees were telling them they had to keep what?
All the laws.
The law and all the extra rules they made up to go with it, right? Would that be an easy task? No. So people had a heavy burden of all the guilt of not being able to keep all the rules that they thought they had to keep in order to get to God. Do you follow that? So Jesus is saying, "Come to me, You've been working and working and working and trying hard to get to God by keeping a bunch of rules and regulations, and it's heavy on you. It's wearing you down. Come to me. Take off the yoke of all the Pharisees put on you and all the law keeping, and put my yoke on you. And what's he say about his yoke? Question number 14. What does Jesus say to us about his yoke?
It's easy.
It's easy. It's easy. And my burden is light. You know, it won't be hard work if you understand the spiritual truth that I'm giving you. If you follow me, you're not going to be burdened down by a bunch of rules and regulations that never get you there. And all the guilt is associated with that. And you're probably not old enough to have experienced that. I don't know. If you talk to adults who became Christians, followed Jesus as an adult, they maybe could tell you that before that they felt a burden of sin. And coming to Jesus took that burden away. Have you heard anybody talk like that and say things like that? Yeah. And so that's what Jesus is telling them. Then number 15, making it personal. And I'm not going to ask you to say this out loud, just think about it. Are you heavy laden? You know, it's quite possible that there are some of you that feel that burden. You know you've been trying and trying, and you know you're not making it, and you've been trying real hard, but things aren't getting any better. Well, what's your response then? You know, give up the burden. Give it to Jesus. Come to him. Let him take it away. You know, let him forgive your sins so you don't have that guilt anymore. All right, next we come to section C, which is reception by a sinner. And I'm going to have you do this section, paragraph 62, which is Luke 7:36 to 50. So you will look that up and do questions 16 through 23. Go ahead and start on that.